Ernest Hemingway's novel Across the River and Into the Trees, published in 1950, was his first fiction release since 1940s For Whom the Bell Tolls. In the interim, he edited the 1942 war story anthology Men at War. Hemingway worked on Across the River and Into the Trees in the late 1940s while in Cuba and France. The novel first appeared serialized in Cosmopolitan magazine in early 1950. Despite receiving negative reviews, it became Hemingway's first and only novel to reach the #1 spot on the New York Times bestseller list, maintaining the position for 7 weeks. Over time, critical reception has softened, and it is now regarded as a significant work. The title references the final words of Confederate General Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson. "Let us cross over the river and rest under the shade of the trees." This was the last full-length work Hemingway published in his lifetime, followed only by the 1952 novella The Old Man and the Sea. The story follows Colonel Richard Cantwell, an aging man with a heart condition, on a duck hunt in Trieste, Italy. During the hunt, Cantwell is frustrated with his inept boatman, but proud of his successful hunt. The narrative then shifts to a flashback of Cantwell's past, including his love for a young Venetian countess named Renata, and his experiences as a one-star general in World War I. The novel portrays Cantwell and Renata's romantic relationship, and reflects on a warrior nearing the end of his life. Colonel Cantwell is driven to meet Renata by Jackson, a non-commissioned officer. During the journey, Cantwell shares his deep appreciation for Venice, recounting its history and his personal connections to the city, especially from his time in the Italian army during World War I. Upon arriving in Venice, Cantwell meets Renata, who is almost 19 years old while he is middle-aged. The reasons for Renata's attraction to Cantwell are unclear. She is naive, from a wealthy background, and seems unfazed by the age difference, even when Cantwell calls her daughter, and is older than her father. After spending 3 days in Venice indulging in food, drink, and romance with Renata, Colonel Cantwell quotes Stonewall Jackson's final words, foreshadowing his own death. He then moves to the back seat of his staff car and succumbs to a heart attack. Critics of Across the River and Into the Trees often claimed the novel lacked a substantial plot. In response, Hemingway highlighted the inclusion of significant historical events such as the Normandy breakthrough, the liberation of Paris, and the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest, which he witnessed as a war correspondent. These war stories, recounted by the colonel to the countess, enrich the narrative, despite its primary focus on the affair and Cantwell's untimely death. Though Across the River and Into the Trees has gained respect over the years, it faced considerable disappointment upon its initial release. Commentary magazine offered one of the harshest critiques, stating, "The first thing to be said about this novel is that it is so egregiously bad as to render all comment on it positively embarrassing to anyone who esteems Hemingway as one of the more considerable prose artists of our time, and as the author of some of the finest short stories in the language." Hence the disappointment induced by this latest work of his, a work manifestly composed in a state of distemper, if not actual demoralization. This novel reads like a parody by the author of his own manner parody, so biting that it virtually destroys the mixed social and literary legend of Hemingway that has now endured for nearly 3 decades. However, amid the harsh negativity, The publication acknowledged Hemingway's enduring greatness. For it can be said that not since the days of Dickens and later of Mark Twain has a writer of fiction in English succeeded in beguiling and captivating his readers to the extent that Hemingway did, and his success had a quality of ease and naturalness that was essentially exhilarating.